and just be noticeable. So me being from LA and then playing in the LA market, I knew, again, not for long. If it does happen, God forbid, get hurt. Using that platform, also with my brand, all the no's that I used to get, as soon as I signed, they became yeses. But I understood the game. So I had, in sales, we have armadillo skin. So we can't take anything personal. So with me having that platform, I realized, okay, the key decision makers and the execs that now I'm able to speak to and talk to being in this LA market, that's how I kind of got into like modeling and actor. I understood the volume and the temperature and the heat that I had. So if you look at individuals like Taylor Swift, her temperature is very hot right now. Kendrick Lamar is very hot. Bitcoin's very hot. That's because the temperature is there. So once the iron's hot, you have to strike. So I understood that growing up in LA and being in the LA market. It would have been different if I played for like Green Bay or something like that. But me understanding, you know, after practice or whatever, I can go have lunch at, you know, somewhere and meet with those individuals that can propel me to that next level. So me understanding that is what really, it was a blessing for me to be in the LA market as well. So.
Yeah, so having so many industries all in one.
Exactly.
How did you have the foresight to take advantage of every opportunity that came your way?
That's a really good question. So when I was growing up, so when I was in college, I always hung out with like older individuals. So like my friends that probably play NFL or NBA, they would be in that life going to like that 3 to 4 years. And then when it gets taken away from them, it goes from yes to maybe to no. So now you're looking back as a human being like, okay, who am I outside of what it is that I do? And the mental health around that, what I was saying, it was like, wow, as a man or as a woman, what am I passionate about? And so me seeing that, I'm the type of person, if I see someone touch the stove and they get burned, I'm probably not gonna touch the stove. So me understanding that and knowing that I was going that route, I wanted to do everything I needed to do in that realm. So me foreseeing that. And also, as you know, as you heard the Entourage song, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. So I understood, and Ari Gold, as you probably know, I understood, just like in sales, you know, there's different conferences. So January through December, there's a plethora of events you have to go to. So when I lived in Europe, I understood, you know, this was happening in Italy, this was happening in Paris, this was happening in London at the time. Or if I was in LA, this is what's happening this time. This is happening in New York, this is happening in Miami. So during those 2 years when I was trying to get, so from undergrad trying to get into league, I understood that, you know, so two of my biggest keys that I've learned in my some of my mantras is be everywhere. And also, it's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. So me understanding that is I had to go to all the different events. Like, so in January, there's like Sundance, there's the Golden Globes. Interesting. Hopefully your kids probably don't do this. But I used to be a seat filler at those award shows. But no, you know, celebrities didn't know that I was a seat filler. But with my confidence going back to, okay, who's going to be in this room? What does this person look like? This is who I need to talk to and network with. So when I was going to these events, being in the LA, this is all before the NFL, matter of fact. So getting into those rooms and connecting with those individuals, I also knew February was the Grammys, same thing, and the Super Bowl. So picture here, this is after. So me and my dad, we went to the Super Bowl, and that was pretty cool. This was last year in Glendale. And in April, you have Coachella. You have the draft. So being in those tight spots, depending on what your industry in and what you want to do, but going back to my dissertation, I want to create more of a personal brand. So that's being everywhere. In May, you have the Kentucky Derby, but the Cannes Film Festival. Here at the bottom, that's me at the Cannes Film Festival. And just understanding that I needed to be like so visibility is still to this day the biggest currency. So if you're in those rooms, you got to be in those rooms that people want to be in, because that makes your brand a little bit more valuable as well. But not just being in those rooms, but how are you creating value? Even in June, the Grand Prix, here with Mark Cuban, it's the NBA Awards. So like I was literally doing any and everything. That was so exhausting. Thank God I was in my 20s, because I don't know how I did all this, like traveling and just doing too much. And then August, you know, training, because obviously I'm still trying to get into the NFL as well, but networking like crazy as well. So August was September is Fashion Week, and it was here in New York. I was in London and Paris. In October, training Complex Con. And in November, different nonprofit organizations because of more of the holiday times. And working with different nonprofits. So having different pillars about myself is really what helped me stand out.
So imagine he's talking me through this and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, wait, what? And just the entire calendar that he puts together at the beginning of the year. So pretty impressive in terms of presence and being there at the right time. Have you ever said no?
I have a problem with that, but I mean it in a beneficial way. So, and I recommend this. I started therapy at the top of April of this year. I didn't know how good it was until I started it. But I have this syndrome called FOMO, which is fear of missing out. And I didn't know until I kind of spoke about it. But the way my perception on life is a little bit different. I look at life backwards. So I remember meeting with Gary Vaynerchuk one time. And he told me, when you're however old you are, if you're looking back and man, I didn't want to be the individual man, when I was 35, I wish I would have did this. Man, when I was 50, I should have tried this. When I was 12, dang it, I knew So for me, I fear regret over death any day. So I didn't want to have any regrets. So with me understanding kind of how business and networking things worked, I didn't want to have that fear of missing out. Now, the flip coin of that could be very dangerous. So that's a whole nother subject. But especially when I had the temperature and the heat, I wanted to exude all opportunity that I had at the time because, in the future, now I can look back and say, I don't have any regrets. I have a lot of, Marcus, maybe you shouldn't have done that, but I'd rather have that than maybe, Marcus, you should have tried at least.
And we're just talking about his career up until the NFL point. Oh, by the way, I mean, he also an entrepreneur, has his own clothing line, was an actor, as I mentioned, in the CW for All American, model. The list goes on. We're going to get into the world of finance now.
Yes.
We've mainly talked about the NFL, but how did you pivot from football into finance? I mean, that's a big shift.
It's a good question. So, as we all know, when COVID hit in 2020, that put us all in a different ball game. So my last stint, I had a workout with the San Francisco 49ers on October 3rd of 2020. And at that moment, I said, you know what, God, I'm at peace with whatever happens after this. Because, again, the FOMO, I've done everything I could have done during that time. So I was at peace with it. A lot of people don't have peace with what, they want to do or what their dreams were. So I didn't get signed or anything. So now I was like, okay, now you got to put your big boy shoes on. But now my backbone, I had my MBA, so I had a lot of corporate kind of gigs I can get into. So I got into finance because did my MBA in global business finance. And I keep looking this way, but I'm not forgetting you guys. It's just my neck. So I love you guys. I love you guys. So I got into finance. So going back to what she was saying, there's a show called All American. Again, being in the LA market, I got a message hey, there's this show called All American. And when I was doing that, there was a partner of an IRA firm that really liked the show. And she messaged me, but didn't know I was in finance. I didn't really broadcast it like that. So one thing led to another. She was looking for a director and things of that nature. So I got into a director at an IRA firm in Santa Monica, California. So I was doing that, and then now we're here in 2024. So I became a director of an IRA firm in Santa Monica. Very robust industry, working with high net worth individuals, as you guys probably know, AUM, assets under management, everything with a dollar sign in front of it. And it's giving me PTSD because every time I have meetings, I say the same thing. So I'm just saying it again. But working with those high net worth individuals, as I was telling her, those transferable skills I had with the networking and being in the NFL, also with my background in finance and business management, working with those, KKR, Bain Capital, asset management funds, VCs, things of that nature, and then just helping individuals with their portfolios and taking them to the next level. As we know here in New York, you guys are getting taxed like crazy, like 42% depending on your tax bracket, what it is that you do. Yeah, this section is getting taxed. So understanding that, like work with partners at, the Big Four here at Google or in the tech industry, or Kirkland, which is law firms or things of that nature, but understanding what their niches were and what they were doing. That's kind of what our tax mitigation strategies and retirement was really our niche, and working with those high net worth individuals. So then I came to that part, and I was looking like, well, with my transferable skills, as I was saying, is this kind of something that I'm good at, or is this something that I really want to do and this is my purpose?
So that brings us to the next pivot, as he's thinking about and has done his TPM certification at Microsoft and other places.
I didn't say Microsoft, she said it.
I said it. But thinking about expanding skill sets and going into different industries, and going back to using your words, Marcus, striking while the iron is hot, definitely seeing something from, in the industry from an AI perspective. What instigated the pivot as you start to look into tech?
That's a great question. So even going from there, so even from football to finance, I understood, as we know, sales. So even I'll go piggyback, even before I got to the NFL, I was having like different corporate meetings of like interviews to go into the workforce. And I'll never forget, I was in this interview at a financial firm, and I said, you know what, this is probably like my fourth or fifth interview, and I told the manager, I said, I have an inkling, like God is telling me I'm so close, and I want to be very transparent with you. My goal is still the NFL. Although I'm here, full suit, 100% wanting to be of a resource to your company, I feel it. I have a feeling, and I have to kind of delay this offer. So he was really cool about it, and then 2 weeks later, I got signed, which was a blessing. But going back, knowing sales and marketing and branding, the brand that I started is called MP. My name is Marcus Peterson, MP Motivational Apparel brand. I came up with the concept 3 months before, but I understand, as you guys know in sales, timing is everything. So I knew that I was going to be so close. So I had an interview with an entrepreneur named David Metzler. He's kind of in the sports marketing world. And I wanted to, the message needed to make sense. So I waited until I got that platform, that global platform on the NFL. Then a day later, no, 2 days later, that's when I launched it, because now the story was all going to be in alignment and making sense with what I've been through. And within the first, I think, 2 months, I sold about 5,000 in just T-shirts alone. But if I would have did that 2 months before, it wouldn't have made sense. So when you're going into sales, and just as you guys know, all this stuff, people are not buying the product, like the cloud product that you guys sell, they're buying you. So me understanding that, emotion and storytelling drives sales, that's what I really wanted to do. And then when I got that platform to do that, that's what took my personal brand to the next level. But to piggyback off what you're saying, so how can I word this correctly? So this time last year, okay, again, in a very robust, financial, like a lucrative industry. It looked good on paper, VP of a financial firm in Boca Raton, good office, blah, blah, blah. But I had to come to a realization with myself, like, again, Marcus, is something I'm good at? Is this something that my passion? So I was here actually for New Year's Eve in New York for the first time. And I highly recommend being in New York City for New Year's Eve. But I went back to Boca for my office because Q1 starts. So now it's like January 5th. It's 9:30 at night. I'll never forget. And I had that epiphany, and I was like, man, this is not really what my calling is. Obviously, it's good for my knowledge and the connections that I'm making. But me understanding that where tech is going. So at that time, Gemini was coming out, Copilot, ChatGPT was a big thing. So me working with a lot of tech individuals, I knew the ins and outs of the benefits and kind of how tech worked, but not the nuances on the day-to-day. So I knew where tech was going, and if, as you guys know in these seats, if we don't have any type of knowledge of where tech, any type of technical background within the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be left behind. So with me taking that and being cognizant of that, I wanted to switch over to tech because, working 70, 75 hours a week is not super conducive. It's like for me, I don't have any kids. I'm not married. But once that does happen, I do want to have that time to spend with my kids or my family. So working with all these high net worth individuals, it was as a fiduciary. I'm not going to tell any business. So like, let's say someone at Morgan Stanley, exec, making good money, but 2 mortgages to 2 kids. But now let's say upper 50s, but now depressed at what he does and can't retire for the next 12 to 17 years and feels stuck. So as a financial advisor and a wealth management consultant, as well as a psychologist, when you're dealing with people's money, you become friends with these individuals. So hearing that quite often, I said, I don't want to be in that position where I was good at that, but now I'm stuck. And so for me, I like to travel and do like things. So I wanted to position myself and understanding it. I did my due diligence of where what you guys are doing and how it goes. And I took that leap of faith and I wanted to transition. It was hard leaving that position because, like I said, it looks good on paper, but I had to be true with myself and then the nuances of kind of how me and things are going.
And Marcus, just before we wrap, what's next?
What's next? So that's a good question. We're all still in search of, but what's next is, so a lot of my networking came from LinkedIn, so looking to start a brand consulting business for high caliber college players and athletes, because I understood, so in 2019 and 2020, 70% of my income came from LinkedIn, and that was networking myself in those positions, and whether that was brand deals or marketing or gigs or positions. So me understanding what such a high platform as, being a college athlete or NFL player or a professional player or whatever, using the LinkedIn platform while your temperature is hot is so key, other than Twitter or Instagram. But all the key decision makers are on LinkedIn, and that cuts out the middleman. And I understood that very early on, and I see why we're sitting in this chair now.
Thank you so much for being here, Marcus. Can we give a round of applause, everybody?
Thank you guys for having me, too.